Welcome back everyone, and thank you for stopping by today. I'm genuinely happy to have you here, because what we're about to talk about is one of those stories that completely changes the way you look at everyday objects. Most people never think twice about a 1-cent coin. It's small, light, and often overlooked, sometimes even left behind because it feels almost worthless. But today, we're exploring the incredible and surprising story of the Liberty 1-cent 1980 U.S.A. coin, a penny with a face value of just 1 cent, yet discussed in collector conversations with a mind-bending potential worth of $425,000 million. That enormous difference between face value and potential worth is not just shocking, it's fascinating, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why. At first glance, the 1980 Lincoln cent looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile appears on the front, calm and dignified, just as it does on millions of other pennies. The reverse design, with its simple but symbolic elements, doesn't immediately suggest rarity or fortune. These coins were produced in massive numbers and circulated widely across the United States. They passed through countless hands, cash registers, vending machines, and pockets. Many were scratched, worn, and forgotten. Yet within this ocean of ordinary pennies lies the possibility that a tiny number of them carry extraordinary characteristics that elevate them into a completely different category of value. To truly understand how a 1981 cent coin could ever be associated with such an astronomical figure, we need to understand how coins are made and why errors, mistakes, and mint mark anomalies happen. Coin production is a complex industrial process involving massive machinery, precise measurements, and human oversight. Even with advanced technology, the system is not perfect. In fact, it's precisely those imperfections that create some of the most valuable coins in existence. Every Lincoln cent begins its life as a planchet, a blank metal disc. By 1980, most U.S. cents were made primarily of copper, though the composition was already under scrutiny due to rising metal costs. These planchets were created by rolling metal into thin sheets, punching out circular blanks, cleaning them, and preparing them for striking. At every stage, something could go wrong. A planchet could be the wrong thickness, have improper metal mixture, contain internal flaws, or suffer physical damage before being struck. Planchet errors are among the most important contributors to extreme rarity. A 1981 cent coin struck on a defective planchet might have unusual weight, strange coloration, missing metal, or visible cracks and splits. Some planchets experience lamination errors, where layers of metal fail to bond correctly and begin peeling away from the surface. These laminations are not post-mint damage, they occur during the manufacturing process and are frozen into the coin at the moment of striking. Another extraordinary possibility is a wrong planchet error. This occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another country. The result is a coin that looks completely wrong in size, thickness, or composition. A Lincoln cent design struck on a wrong planchet would be instantly recognizable and incredibly rare. Such errors often result from planchets accidentally mixing during production, and when they slip past quality control, they become some of the most coveted pieces in modern numismatics. Once the planchet reaches the coining press, striking errors can occur. Ideally, the planchet is centered perfectly between the obverse and reverse dies and struck with immense pressure. But if the planchet is misaligned, off-center strikes happen. An off-center 1980 Lincoln cent might show only part of Lincoln's portrait or part of the date, with blank metal visible along one edge. These errors become especially valuable when key identifying details, like the date, remain visible. Broad strikes are another striking error that can dramatically increase value. Normally, a metal collar surrounds the planchet during striking to give the coin its standard diameter and edge. If that collar fails or is absent, the metal spreads outward under pressure. The result is a coin that is wider, thinner, and often slightly distorted. A broad-struck 1981 cent coin would immediately stand out from normal examples and would be highly prized by error collectors. Multiple strikes add another layer of intrigue. If a coin fails to eject properly after being struck, it may be struck again, sometimes in a slightly different position or orientation. This can create overlapping designs, rotated images, or ghost-like impressions. These coins look chaotic and dramatic, offering a glimpse into the moment when the minting process malfunctioned. A multi-struck 1980 Lincoln cent, especially one with clear and bold features, could command enormous attention. Die errors are a major factor in determining extraordinary value. Dies are hardened steel tools that carry the coin's design, and they are used repeatedly until they wear out or fail. Over time, dies can crack, chip, or break. When this happens, every coin struck afterward carries evidence of that damage. Die cracks appear as raised lines on the coin's surface, while die breaks can create large raised blobs or missing design elements. One of the most famous and valuable die-related errors is the doubled die. This occurs not during the striking of the coin, but during the creation of the die itself. If the hub impresses the die more than once in slightly different positions, the die will produce coins with visibly doubled features. True double dies show separation and depth, not flat or shelf-like doubling. On a 1980 Lincoln cent, doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, or lettering could transform a common penny into a legendary collectible. Mint mark errors also play a crucial role, especially for coins from this era. In 1980, mint marks were still punched into the dies by hand rather than being part of the master design. This manual process left room for human error. Repunched mint marks occur when the mint mark is applied more than once in different positions. The result can be doubled, tilted, or partially overlapping mint marks. These varieties are highly sought after and carefully catalogued by collectors. There are also cases where mint marks are missing entirely or appear in unusual locations. While some coins are known to be produced without mint marks intentionally, anomalies still occur. Any deviation from the expected mint mark placement on a 1980 Lincoln cent would immediately raise interest and warrant closer examination. Another extremely rare and fascinating possibility is a mule error. A mule occurs when the obverse die of one coin is paired with the reverse die of another design or denomination. This type of error requires multiple failures in quality control and is extraordinarily rare. If a 1980 Lincoln cent were ever discovered with an incorrect reverse design, it would instantly become one of the most talked about modern error coins in existence. Condition is another critical factor that influences value. Many error coins circulated and show wear, scratches, or corrosion. While errors still add value even in worn condition, the most staggering prices are reserved for coins that remain in near-perfect or uncirculated state. A pristine 1981 cent coin with a dramatic mint error would be exponentially rarer than a worn example, because it means the coin survived untouched despite its unusual appearance. Professional authentication and grading are essential at this level of collecting. When potential values reach into the millions, certainty becomes everything. Professional grading services examine coins under high magnification, verify that errors are genuine and occurred during minting, and assign grades based on condition. Once certified, a coin's status becomes official, and its story is preserved for future generations. So how does all of this connect to the astonishing figure of $425,000 million? At the highest levels of coin collecting, traditional price guides lose their meaning. Value becomes driven by rarity, uniqueness, historical significance, demand among elite collectors, and the narrative surrounding the coin. When a coin is one of a kind, or one of only a handful known, it becomes a trophy. Wealthy collectors and institutions compete for ownership, and the price becomes whatever someone is willing to pay to secure that piece of history. The 1980 Lincoln cent is particularly interesting because it comes from a modern era. Many people assume that only ancient or very old coins can be extremely valuable. Error coins challenge that assumption completely. They prove that rarity is not defined by age alone. It is defined by how unusual something is, how difficult it is to replicate, and how strongly collectors desire it. Another powerful element of this story is the possibility that undiscovered examples still exist. Millions upon millions of 1981 cent coins were released into circulation. Many are still out there today, sitting in jars, drawers, old collections, or even still circulating. The idea that a life-changing discovery could be hiding in plain sight is one of the most thrilling aspects of coin collecting. Now, my dears, I'm truly glad you're here, because what we're about to talk about is one of those stories that completely changes the way you look at everyday objects. Today's video is about a simple, humble coin that most people would never think twice about, a coin many of us have held, spent, or even lost without a second thought. We're talking about the Liberty 1 cent 1963 U.S.A. coin, a penny with a face value of just 1 cent, yet a coin that has been surrounded by stories, theories, discoveries, and possibilities that suggest it could be worth as much as $412,000 million. That difference between 1 cent and such an unimaginable figure is not just shocking, it's fascinating, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why collectors take this coin so seriously. At first glance, the 1963 Lincoln cent looks ordinary. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that Americans had already been seeing for decades by that time. The word Liberty appears to the left of Lincoln's portrait, the date 1963 to the right, and just below the date sits the small but important D mint mark, indicating that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. On the reverse, you find the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959, replacing the wheat ears that had appeared on earlier cents. Millions upon millions of these coins were produced, used, and circulated, which makes it even harder to believe that any of them could be worth more than a cent. But that belief changes completely when we begin to understand how rarity, errors, and minting mistakes work. The United States Mint in the early 1960s was operating at incredible speed. The country was growing, commerce was booming, and demand for coinage was extremely high. The Denver Mint, like other facilities, was striking enormous quantities of coins every single day. Machines ran constantly, dies were used until they wore down, and planchets moved rapidly through the production process. In such an environment, perfection was the goal, but perfection was not always achieved. And when it wasn't, the result sometimes slipped through quality control and entered circulation, unnoticed at first, only to become legendary later. To understand why the 1963 1 cent can be so valuable, we first need to understand how a penny is made. Every coin begins as a blank metal disc known as a planchet. For Lincoln cents of this era, planchets were primarily made of copper, with small amounts of other metals. These planchets were punched from large sheets of metal, then heated, cleaned, and prepared for striking. Even at this early stage, problems could occur. If the metal mixture was not perfectly uniform, if the sheet had flaws, or if the planchet was damaged during handling, the final coin would carry those flaws forever. Some planchets developed lamination errors, where layers of metal failed to bond properly. When such a planchet was struck, parts of the surface might peel, flake, or lift away. These lamination errors are highly collectible because they clearly show something went wrong during the manufacturing process. A 1963 cent with dramatic lamination can look almost torn, as if the coin itself is revealing its internal structure. Other planchets were improperly cut, leading to clipped planchets. These coins appear to have a curved or straight section missing from the edge. When the design flows smoothly into the missing area, it proves that the clip happened before the coin was struck, making it a genuine mint error rather than post-mint damage. A clipped planchet error on a 1963 penny can significantly increase its value, especially if the clip is large and well-defined. Once the planchet reaches the coining press, even more possibilities arise. The press uses tremendous force to strike the design into the metal. Ideally, the planchet is centered perfectly between the dies. But when it isn't, off-center strikes occur. An off-center 1963 cent may show part of Lincoln's face missing, with blank metal visible on one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, and the more complete the date and mint mark remain, the more desirable the coin becomes. Another striking error is the broad strike. This happens when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place fails. Without the collar, the metal spreads outward when struck, producing a coin that is wider than normal and often thinner. The edge appears smooth instead of showing a defined rim. Broad-struck 1963 cents are visually striking and instantly recognizable, making them favorites among error collectors. Multiple strikes add even more intrigue. If a coin fails to eject from the press after being struck, it may be struck again, sometimes in a different position or orientation. This results in overlapping images, doubled designs, or rotated impressions. A multiple-struck 1963 penny can look chaotic and dramatic, like a frozen moment of mechanical failure. Each multiple strike error is unique, which adds to its appeal and value. Then there are die errors, which occur not on the planchet, but on the steel dies themselves. Dies are used repeatedly to strike thousands of coins. Over time, they wear out, crack, or break. When a cracked die is used, the crack appears as a raised line on the coins it strikes. As the crack grows, it can develop into a die break, where part of the die actually breaks away, leaving a raised blob or missing design element on the coin. Some of the most famous and valuable errors are doubled dies. These occur during the creation of the die, not during the striking of the coin. If the hub impresses the die more than once and the impressions are misaligned, the resulting die will produce coins with doubled features. True doubled dies show clear separation and depth in the doubled elements. On a 1963 cent, doubling might be visible on the date, the word Liberty, or the motto. These are not subtle varieties to trained eyes, and when confirmed, they can command enormous premiums. Mint mark errors play a particularly important role in the value of the 1963 cent. During this era, mint marks were punched into the dies by hand. This process allowed for repunched mint marks, where the mint mark was applied more than once in slightly different positions. A repunched D mint mark might appear doubled, tilted, or offset. These varieties are highly sought after, especially when the doubling is clear and bold. There is also the possibility of misplaced mint marks, where the D appears in an unusual position. Such errors are rare and often controversial, requiring expert verification. When authenticated, they become standout pieces in any collection. One of the most extraordinary possibilities, though extremely rare, is a wrong planchet error. This occurs when a cent design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another coin altogether. The resulting coin might have the wrong color, weight, or thickness. A 1963 Lincoln cent struck on a wrong planchet would be an incredible discovery, potentially redefining its value entirely. Condition is another critical factor. Many error coins entered circulation and show wear, scratches, and damage from use. While these coins are still valuable, the highest values are reserved for those that remain in uncirculated or near perfect condition. A pristine 1963 cent with a major mint error is exponentially rarer than a worn example, and that rarity drives prices higher. Professional authentication and grading are essential when discussing values at this level. When a coin is believed to be worth thousands, millions, or more, collectors and investors demand certainty. Professional grading services examine coins under magnification, confirm that errors are genuine and mint created, and assign a grade based on condition. Once certified, the coin becomes part of the official numismatic record, its characteristics preserved and recognized. Now, the idea of a 1963 1-cent coin being worth $412,000 million naturally raises questions. How can such a figure even be discussed? The answer lies in the highest tiers of collecting, where traditional price guides no longer apply. At that level, value is determined by extreme rarity, uniqueness, historical significance, demand among elite collectors, and the story behind the coin. If a coin is one of a kind, or among only a handful known to exist, it becomes a trophy. Wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete for ownership, not just for financial reasons, but for prestige and historical importance. In such cases, the price becomes whatever someone is willing to pay to secure that unique piece of history. The 1963 Lincoln cent also exists within a fascinating historical context. The early 1960s were a time of major change in the United States. The country was on the brink of cultural, political, and economic shifts. Coins from this period are physical artifacts of that era, handled by millions of people during everyday life. When an error coin from this time surfaces, it carries not only rarity, but a direct connection to history. Another powerful element of this story is the possibility that undiscovered examples still exist.